Hello. So I'm working my way through the comments. I've been busy recently, but I have the time now, so I thought I'll just film a video instead. So I'm going to use one of these comments to base this video topic off of, because I think it's something that I've not addressed in a while, and there seem to be a lot of new people here subscribed to the channel, so it's good to kind of go back to basics now and again and just make sure things are clear. But this comment highlights an important point. So this is from The Dreamer 1980, which says, I think this is in response to the other people in the comments. It says, what makes you think this guy has all the answers? I did respond to this, and then same person says, I'm not saying you're possibly delusional, although that's certainly possible. It just amazes me how quick people are to be totally on board with someone else's beliefs. I totally agree with that. It's not like you have any proof at all to back up your claims. That's true as well. I have absolutely no proof whatsoever. Nothing objective anyway. I'm open to anything, but not totally sold on anything. I think that's perfect. No offence intended. I would only take offence to that, or it would only be seem critical, or myself, or someone else, anyone else who sees that comment. If there was an identification with or an attachment to David and David's concepts and beliefs, or David's message, or whatever. But beneath that, or a deeper level in that is a very important point to consider when exploring the potential minefield of non-duality. This is something I addressed in a video titled I Could Be Delusional, where I was suggesting that, worst case scenario for me to be doing this to this extent for this long, if what I was talking about was purely belief based, it wasn't based off of my own experience. I wasn't talking knowingly from my own experience, or there wasn't any real insight here. The level of delusion that would probably require would be worrying, to say the least. It would be concerning, and that's entirely possible. There is the potential, people have a tendency to believe things, and there is the potential to be misled. 100%, especially when we are in this non-dual space, because what we're talking about isn't something objectively tangible. Like the commenter said, there's no evidence. So where do you get the evidence? How do you protect yourself from being misled? And I would suggest that simply to confirm what I'm talking about in your own experience. This is where it's a little bit paradoxical, because I frequently say this doesn't appear as a confirmation or a conclusion, which is kind of true at one level, but at another level, it clarifies. It is confirming itself. It can clarify and confirm itself in your experience. So don't believe anything that I'm saying, don't take it as a belief. These aren't beliefs I'm talking about. This is an experience. This is experiential. And everything that I'm saying can be confirmed in your own experience if you're willing to look. That way there is no doubt. That way the inquiry, the investigation, the path is led by your own experience, not by an external source. I appear as an external source, but I also appear within your experience. So the best way to take these videos are, don't believe anything I'm saying. Go on the felt and intuitive sense of what feels right for you. If, you know, let's use an analogy, right? So for example, someone approaches you and says, here, you need to come with me, I found a unicorn in the forest. And you said, and you're like, this guy's a bit weird. Okay, I'll come along. So you go along, and you get to the forest and he stops and he's like, look, it's there. And he's pointing and you look and there's nothing there. And you're like, oh, what the fuck? Here, let's get away from this guy. Something's not right here. This person's delusional. So, you know, what he was pointing to didn't exist in your experience. Maybe it exists in his experience as a belief, but are you going to believe something that's not there? No. So the same person approaches and says, like, I found a unicorn in the woods, come and see. So you go and have a look, and you're like, this person's mental. And you get there and he points and there is a unicorn there. So the unicorn appears in your experience. It's confirmed itself as a reality. All of a sudden, the claim, what that person was pointing to, there's clearly some truth to it because you've confirmed it in your own experience. Your experience is there's a unicorn there. So either you're both crazy, both delusional, or there's some truth to it. So most of the viewers that have been here for a while have experience, so to speak, with the unicorn, have, you know, confirmed this in their own experience, and that it takes away the importance of and the meaning of the language which points to it, and it is replaced with the experience. Then the language becomes secondary, and it is used as a tool which has no inherent meaning which points to any objective reality, but it's used as a tool to further clarify this that's already clear in experience. There is, so I'll give my own experience on this. I deeply knew, and I wouldn't say this is totally a belief, partially a belief, but I deeply knew that the unicorn was there. I could feel it, although I didn't really have the experience with it. I had some kind of peak experiences with it before, but something in me was more certain about this than I felt an intuitive level than I was about any objective knowledge that I had. So I listened to the non-dual speakers, and there was something operating at a deeper level that had nothing to do with the language or nothing really to do with the belief at that level, although there was belief there. I just knew there was something in me that just knew. That when I read about Buddhism or Vedanta, something in me just knew. So there was something moving this at a deeper level that had nothing to do with a particular set of descriptions or a particular speaker. You could say I knew the unicorn was there, but I hadn't seen it directly. So you could call that a belief, but it's not really, because the unicorn is what I am. It's here, I could feel it. I think there's like is it a Zen thing with the ox herding pictures, which kind of describes what I'm kind of talking about here, except instead of a unicorn, I'm using a unicorn because it's a national animal of Scotland, strangely enough, even though it's not a real animal. It's the ox herding pictures where it describes something like this, that you find the footprints of the ox type thing. The ox represents enlightenment, and you're looking for it in the wilderness, and then eventually you have the experience of the ox comes into your experience, and you recognise it. It recognises itself in you. So is it a belief at the start when we have no experience? I guess you could say so, but there's something deeper going on there. Most of you will know what I'm talking about here. There's a felt sense to this. So before David comes into your experience talking about what all the other non-dual speakers are talking about, that's already there. So, pardon me. But it's important, right? So this leads us into the conceptual thing. That this isn't an understanding in the conceptual sense. It's more essential than that. It's more direct than that. You could say that the concepts point to it, but don't define it. Or you could say the substance of the concepts being thoughts, are made of it. So, by definition, the concepts can't define their substance. So, of course, anything that I'm always using concepts in language. Anything I say is merely kind of like symbolic interpretation that is there to point you deeper into your own experience. It's not meant to provide a conceptual framework or a set of ideas that have the real power to capture this. It's just a tool. You could maybe, like, I like to frame it in kind of like a poetic thing or an artistic expression in language that is itself a symbol that represents and points to something deeper. So it's pointing to something, that something being where you're looking from right now, where you're hearing from your own experience. So your own experience is always primary. David appears in your experience with a bunch of language that can, if taken the right way, help to clarify what I'm pointing to. What gets in the road of that is the objective mind, the conceptual framework of the content of thoughts. The tricky part is that I'm using that to point to the source of that or what it's made of. So in order to hear that at a deeper level, so to speak, the objective content of thoughts, the concepts, need to kind of relax out of focus a little bit. In that, the language becomes a bit more neutral, has a bit less importance to it as I'm talking about something. Because I'm using things, concepts, words to point to something that's not a thing, which is why language is so limited, why there is a fundamental flaw in me talking about this at all. There can be at one level, but it's how you take it, what you give the importance to. Do you give the importance to the objects, the descriptions, the concepts, or do you use them as a tool to look deeper into your own experience? So, as a basic in this, it's important to understand that I think that we can't accurately talk about this. It simply isn't possible. Because what we're pointing to with the language is something that can't be captured in language or concept. If we truly understand that... Sorry, give me 2 seconds. Sorry, I had to take a call there. If we truly understand that we can't capture this in words, that the words don't point directly to this as something, if we truly understand the limitations of the objective mind and language, then we can release the importance of the language altogether. In the knowledge that we can't talk about this, it frees us up to talk as much as we want about it with that knowledge. In that, we release the importance of the language and the concepts, and the focus, it kind of defocuses from the conceptual side of this, and then something deeper has the chance to shine through. As we defocus the importance of the language and the concepts, it also defocuses the importance of the speaker, the one speaking, the objects that are appearing in your experience, and it relaxes that subject-object function, where at the core of that there is a me that's relating to all this as something separate. So this is where the kind of intuitive part of this comes in. Because how are we going to move forwards in this path? How are we going to orient our direction and attention if we don't have a conceptual framework to use or to base that on? There's an energetic signature of that as moving out from here and relating to something else. So it could be David, it could be the language, it could be the concepts. From here, from the felt sense of what I am, I relate to something else being often awakening as a thing, or non-duality as a thing. That's all based on this felt to be real assumption of the subject here that has to relate to something external called awakening, that maybe exists in the future, or did exist in the past and I lost it, or I can figure out it's going to confirm itself as a specific and objective experience. As we relax those objects of attention, what has the potential to become more and more clear is the subject here that feels like it needs to do that. It feels like it needs to relate to and discern something else. But what I'm saying is, there is no something else. Which is what we're always pointing to with this. Non-duality, not two. There's an energetic signature that can be felt in an intuitive sense that gets clear with this of relating to something else. That something else is always going to be thought. And it's always based on the point of view, the inherent point of view of the thinker. That feels like it needs to move towards something, or discern something, or figure it out, or attain something, or identify with something. So that's why sometimes I don't, like, I think I'm intuitively getting a little bit better at this, but I haven't been in the past. And it's when that conceptual fixation appears, right? What I see when I'm interacting with people on here, especially in the comments, is just language, just awakeness, talking to itself. There's not a strong definition of individuals. Like, I know some of you quite well now because we've talked, and I recognise that. But what's more obvious is the experience is just like reality through conditions interacting with itself. What appears in that is an obvious conceptual fixation. Sometimes it's not so obvious, but an obvious conceptual fixation. I'm kind of learning not to push too hard when people, when that appears in experience. Sometimes it's not a good idea to push too hard on that, because we use that for our security, to orient us and stabilise us in the known world. Sometimes it's not a great idea to push up against that too much, because one, it's very hard to do that. If it's very hard to do that and it not appear to be like a kind of two points of view pushing to prove their own point of view in a conceptual way. Like, what I just described in this video has to be clear in order for this to be authentic, or in order for this to be effective. If there is that clarity and there is a conceptual fixation, then I might be even more cautious about pushing it, depending on the situation, because it's frightening to let that go. It's frightening to let the known world go and drop into the unknown. And the known world is very much so something that I relate to, that is separate from me, that I have to orient myself within as the central character. As we get to the limits of those conceptual frameworks, which is, I'm always kind of talking on the limit of that. That whole thing starts to kind of collapse in on itself. The attention isn't held out there in the thought experience as the thinker, from the point of view of the thinker. It relaxes out, and then what is here, what is fundamental to this, it can clarify. And it's not something that can be understood in the objective, usual way. The collapsing of the subject-object function in mind quite often can come with an emotional uprising. I just spat all over the camera. A fear response, or a kind of like existential terror. It's not particularly comfortable from the point of view of that subject. It's kind of like the subject's always looking to avoid that. The thinker, the me, is always looking to avoid that by keeping the attention going back and forwards in this relational function and relating to something called my experience that's separate from me. The definition of that kind of starts to fade away, and what it's replaced with is something that clearly is too direct, too immediate, too complete to be in any way defined by the language, to be in any way defined by the belief. You could say it's the substance of everything, the knowingness that knows my beliefs, knows the concepts, knows myself. So for example, right, if you're watching this, notice the energetic signature of relating to me and what I'm saying, so a David character and what David's talking about in a conceptual way, and then turn the attention back to you, the one that is hearing these words, you, the one that is looking out at this appearance of David as a character on the screen, the one in the centre of it all, the subject. In that you might notice that the sound overtakes the content of the words. The ideas in a conceptual way. It all becomes a little bit more direct. And you might notice that the conceptual content of the words isn't something that needs to be consciously discerned through effort. So as the words appear, as you hear the words, completely simultaneous, the meaning within the words in a conceptual way is already known. There needs to be no effort exerted to understand what I'm talking about. It's already happening. It's the effort that's being applied with felt belief, felt reality, added to the directness of what this is, that I'm pointing to relaxing, letting go of, seeing through. If you can feel that, if you can, in your experience, connect with what I'm talking about, then it can be undoubtable. It's not doubtable. It's all we're talking about is your experience, whoever's watching this, which is the only experience. All I'm doing here is talking from my experience, appearing in your experience. All I'm doing is talking about my experiences. Another important one to understand is that I can't talk about an actually existing objective reality other than a belief appearing as a thought in my experience. All I'm doing is describing my experience. I'm bound. There's nothing else I can do. That's all this is. There's a felt simplicity and a felt clarity in my experience here, and what I'm doing is I'm talking from that, and that has a resonant effect, and that you can pick that up in your own experience. So any clarity you gain from this is your own clarity. It's not being given to you through a relationship between you and David. It's not being understood by you at a conceptual level, essentially. It's already here. I'm talking about something that's already here, that's inherent. The whole thing gets more simple that way, and it's like I don't need to exert effort to comprehend this. I don't need to figure it out or believe it. All I need to do is get more directly in touch with what's here, this, what you are, which is what I'm always pointing to. Anyway, I'm going to have to go now, but really good comments. I will respond to them at some point. I promise, and I'll talk to you next time.